recently went on a trip to the Mojave Desert in the US, invited by my friend Carl to help photograph some cars in this incredible landscape. We started in Joshua Tree, but this video follows the trip just after we left and started making our way to Death Valley, and gives a behind-the-scenes insight into what it takes to produce magazine-worthy images. We started driving towards Las Vegas, where we'd pick up the cars, travelling through sections of the famous Route 66 and stopping at Roy's, an iconic rest stop and very photogenic. In fact, I found it pretty hard to stop taking pictures of this place. But we eventually dragged ourselves away and moved on. Just taking a little bit of a detour off the main road on the way to Death Valley. Probably a mile or two down this kind of, sandy road where we saw a little tortoise on the way, which was cool. Carl's heard of this little location called the lava tubes. So we're gonna go and check those out and see if there's anything worth photographing. So look, on the way in, we went past like a couple of holes, which I think the light's gonna shine through hopefully. And then it looks pretty cool. Kind of come down this ladder and then a bit of a cave to explore back here. Let's head on down. So yeah, the idea is, or what Carl says has worked before, so we can blame him if it goes wrong. If you throw some dirt up kind of in these little areas of light, you can get pretty cool kind of, there you go. Yeah, cool, like a light rays, that's the word, light rays coming through. So I'm going to set up some cameras and hopefully see what we can capture. So I think that kind of worked. I might combine a couple of those images of throwing the dust up and standing underneath. It's kind of hard to do without throwing dust in your own eyes, but probably not the optimal time of day. If the sun was higher up, we'd get more distinct beams coming down, I think, but still, a worthy little stop. After the lava tubes, we detoured to the bright lights of Las Vegas. The city that never sleeps, to get some much needed rest. The next morning, we picked up a Porsche Taycan and Rivian R1T, the cars we'd be shooting. We left Vegas in these fancy cars, feeling like high rollers, like we'd won big on blackjack. Living the dream, driving fast cars through spectacular landscape and into the Californian desert. But yeah, we crashed back down to reality when we boiled up some hot dogs for dinner. However, the hot dogs would have to wait. We drove a lap of the Artist's Palette in Death Valley, scenery made up of beautifully layered ridges and otherworldly colours. A perfect spot to grab a few shots. After the sun had set, we headed back to base to enjoy our luxurious dinner. And not too bad. But I think this is probably the biggest Instagram versus reality moment I've ever had. We've got about $250,000 worth of cars sat in the car park over there, and we're eating about $1.50's worth of hot dogs for dinner. So we obviously made it to Death Valley, and we shot a few of the cars, or I suppose I watched Carl work his magic and helped where I could. We did like a lap of the Artist's Palette, and I got a couple of different shots from there. The plan tomorrow is hopefully to get to Race Car Player. At the moment, we haven't got a charger for the cars because they're both electric vehicles. So yeah, we'll see how that goes, but fingers crossed. If you've not heard of that place before, it's where those kind of weird phenomenon of all the kind of moving rocks that slide their way across this kind of open plain in almost a mysterious way, but hopefully we'll get there tomorrow. Oh, they're pretty rough night, kind of sleeping in the cars. You can see Carl here, he's ready to kind of shoot the Porsche. The charges in Death Valley are super slow, so it's left us in a bit of a weird position, to be honest with you. We charged the Porsche last night to about 80 miles on it to do a kind of a 40 or 50 mile round trip to a viewpoint and back to the charger. But as we were driving, those miles just started disappearing and the percentage of the battery dropped, so we've kind of stopped halfway to take some pictures of it here. And I mean, the landscape's not too bad, but the truck's on charge still in Furnace Creek in Death Valley, and we're hoping it has enough miles on it when we get back. But to be honest with you, I'm not super hopeful. Like, I don't think it's going to really be possible to get to Racetrack Player in that truck. Like, it's going to be really borderline, and even driving up here is pretty anxiety inducing, and we don't want to end up out of battery in the middle of nowhere with no signal, like on the way out to that racetrack. So we'll see how it goes, but for the meantime, yeah, Carl's going to grab some shots here, and hopefully the sun comes up and we get some nice colours. Trying my hand at a little bit of car photography again this morning, just trying to not get in the way of Carl a little bit too much, who's doing a much better job than I am, I'm sure. But I'm also keeping an eye on some of these mountains behind me. I think Death Valley is all about the layers, kind of layers of ridge lines of different colours all stacked together. So it looks like they're going to catch some really good light in a minute. So I'll be shooting those as well. So even though we didn't get to exactly where we wanted to be this morning, I don't think it's going to be a waste. I think we're still going to get some good images from sunrise this morning. Happy we got what we needed, we started the anxiety-inducing drive home. The worry growing as battery percentage dropped and the dash started showing warning signs. On our way back from that point where we were shooting the Porsche and we had to stop, we've just stopped off at Zabriskie Point. Hasn't added any more miles to the EV, so it should still make it back to the charging point. But as you can see, you kind of get these really cool layers that go through. It's a really popular place at sunrise actually, but it's a little bit after now. But I think the way the light's working, especially in this valley over here, it is kind of creating some nice shadows and lots of texture. So I think getting out the long lens, maybe shooting some close-ups and shooting some perspective of some people in the environment will work pretty well. We made it back to Furnace Creek. So the Porsche now is essentially dead. It had about 10-15% battery when we got back, and these chargers are slow. That's going to take about 11 hours to charge. The Rivian, which is the truck here, that's been on charge for 9 hours and still has 6 hours left. It has about 187 miles left on the battery, and Racetrack Player is actually about 83 miles from here and then 83 miles back. And then we'd either have to stay here and charge for another 10 hours or drive another 60 miles to a supercharger. So I don't think it's really going to be possible to do that, unfortunately. So on to plan B. The first part of plan B consisted of blowing up a sleeping pad and having a bit of a nap. The plan B does become more interesting, I promise. As we left the car on charge, we used the other to explore Death Valley, starting at Badwater Basin, the lowest point in North America. This salt flat sits 280 feet below sea level. We scouted locations for later, visited Natural Bridge, and yet again wipe down the cars. I'm beginning to learn that car photography seems to be mainly cleaning cars.
Yeah, good to go. On my way. Currently shooting the Rivian. And then we're back at the the artist palette that we were at last night, actually. And so this is quite fun for me because I'm driving the air-conditioned car and I'm dropping Carl off or picking him up and he's running back after the car. It's a one-way road, so we can't like go back and forth too much. So he's having a good workout in the 30 degrees. Short. So this is Dante's viewpoint. This is actually the viewpoint we were trying to get to yesterday morning, but we didn't have enough battery in the Porsche. So you've got views all across the valley through here, and then you've got loads and loads of layers of the mountains through here. You might be able to tell that it is pretty windy and it's cold. Like it was 34 degrees yesterday in the day, and now it's like 4 degrees and it feels like 0. And we're just getting a few last pictures of the Porsche. This is probably going to be our last stop for photography on this trip. But I think there's going to be some good ones.
We set up the car with the lights on and the view behind. And Carl got lots of shots from lots of different angles. All the angles.
Trying my best to get some shots, but I don't really know what I'm doing. I think that's about it for the video today. Carl's still kind of behind me shooting away over there, but let me know what you think. It's obviously a little bit different to usual. I'm not really used to shooting cars, never really done it. So let me know what you think of the images that I got, but if you want to check out the real stuff, go and check out Carl's Instagram, and I'll leave a link to that in the description below. We've just got to take these cars back to Vegas now, and then we're flying back to Calgary. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you on the next one.